The Liver Leaders Take 5 podcast invites you to take a few minutes to better understand the importance between your liver and your overall health. During each episode, different liver leaders throughout California take 5 questions to answer the most pressing issues impacting your liver today. Hosted by the Liver Coalition, my name is Scott Succo, the Executive Director, and you can always find us at livercoalition.org. Welcome to another episode of Liver Leaders Take 5. My name is Scott Succo, Executive Director with the Liver Coalition. I'm really excited, and when I say really excited, I really do mean it. I'm excited about our guest today. So our guest today is Cecilia Dueñas, and she's a psychologist, and I just am so glad to have her here. And so welcome, Doctor.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Well, let's start at the beginning because a lot of people listening won't know who you are. So I read online that you're going to be walking, but also kind of forming a team and bringing some family out for our liver walk here in town in September.
That is correct.
And so tell me a little bit about that.
So my goal in walking at the Liver Walk in San Diego is really to bring out awareness for rare liver disease, but also individuals who are living with a rare liver disease or any liver disease and are an ethnic minority. So I'm a Latina, and I really want to bring awareness and a voice to those who don't have it, but also show my daughters that even though I'm going through, a rare diagnosis and I have a rare liver disease and there are days where I'm not functioning or whatnot, that I can still participate and still be active and really teach them also what it means to be involved in a community with other individuals who are walking for the same cause. I'm hoping I have a lot of family join me. I already have some friends that are going to be coming, and we're just super excited to participate this first time for us.
What I love is when you said the word community, because I really do think the Liver Walk is about bringing community together. And when you think about the 100 different kinds of liver diseases, it can be a kind of a diverse community. So tell us a little bit about your particular liver disease and how you kind of came into this community.
Sure. So I have primary biliary cholangitis. It took a really long time for me to be diagnosed. Unfortunately, there was just a lot of different back and forth from provider to provider, different multi-specialty recommendations that were taken. And then I followed through. I was just kind of, really just bounced around from individual to individual. Everybody thought it was something else or someone else's problem or someone else's issue, or the way that I was eating or my diet or exercise or my background of being Hispanic. And so when I finally was diagnosed, it was about 6.5 years after my first symptoms had began.
Wow.
So I was really, really frustrated, but also really eager to learn about liver disease and the particular liver disease that I had, which is very rare. And I wanted to understand a little bit about why it took so long for me to be diagnosed and how others can kind of avoid that process and really advocate for individuals who maybe don't speak English. English is my second language. Spanish is my first language, and I know that I speak English perfectly well, but I also understand that I, was viewed as a Hispanic woman, a Latina woman. And throughout my care, that was often used as either an excuse or a particular issue as to why I was having a symptom.
Wow.
And so when I started looking into the PBC community, I found that I just didn't really find anyone who looked or even sounded like me. I was much younger. I have 2 young children. And so at the time I was working full time. And so I really couldn't connect. And so I started to look broader into the liver community.
So PBC, it predominantly impacts women, correct?
Correct. Predominantly impacts women, but there are men who have PBC. It used to be diagnosed more in older women, so retired age, 60s, 70s, 80s. My symptoms began when I was in my 30s. And so I had a hard time connecting with individuals in the PBC support groups. So I kind of started to expand more into the liver community in general.
6 years of not knowing why you don't feel good. How did you stay so strong?
I knew that it wasn't in my mind. I knew that it wasn't psychological. As a psychologist, I knew that my symptoms were very real. Many times I was told, perhaps you have postpartum depression, because I had just had my second child. And I knew in my heart, this wasn't a result of postpartum depression. The fatigue I felt was bone crushing. What kept me going is I knew there was something wrong, but no one was giving me answers. And I knew that I had to find them myself. I knew that if I didn't research and I didn't figure out what was wrong with me, no one was going to do it for me. And I had, at the time, 2 very young little girls, a baby and a toddler. And I needed to be able to function. Not functioning was not an option for me. And so there were times where I was depressed because everyone just kept pointing me to either endocrinology or OB-GYN or my PCP or even a weight loss clinic. At one point I had lost 130 some pounds and my liver enzymes were not getting any better. My liver labs were not getting any better. I was doing everything that everyone was asking of me. And I think that's really what kept me going. And that's what I did, Scott. I dismissed my entire medical team, every single one, and I looked for ethnically diverse PCPs.
Have you met anyone else that's done that? That is remarkable. I don't know if I've known anyone that has had the courage to say, I'm going to go a different direction here.
I think that's part of my story is giving people the courage to say, when you know there's something wrong, you have the ability and you have the right to say, you know what, this isn't working for me. I'm going to start fresh. I'm going to start new and I'm going to go a different direction. And that's what led me to my diagnosis.
Oh, wow.
Is he looked at all my labs. And at this point, again, it had been years.
Wow.
And everything that I had done. And he said, I think this is either going to be liver related or bone related. So I'm going to schedule you to see both specialties. And it ended up being liver related. But unfortunately for me, the first hepatologist I saw was also not a good fit. I left that appointment crying because, not only that, but this individual didn't even give me 5-10 minutes of their time, didn't even sit down, didn't examine me, didn't look at any of the records that I brought in with me, just looked physically at me. We had been waiting for a translator because they assumed I didn't speak English, and said, I think we just need to redo all your labs. I'm pretty sure it's fatty liver disease.
Wow.
And I said, I disagree. I think my PCP also thinks it might be something autoimmune. And I distinctly remember put her hand up and said, stop, I'm the doctor. Stop Googling and let me tell you what we're going to do. And I walked out in tears and never went back to that specialist again. And I actually went to the Liver Coalition of San Diego's webpage, and that is how I found my current hepatologist. And I thought, okay, this is it. I'm going to call his office and I'm going to schedule and I'm not going to take no for an answer. And that's exactly what I did. As I called and he had a little bit of a wait list, but I kept calling and calling and calling every other day. And they finally got me in within 5 days. He appreciated the fact that I had essentially narrowed it down to 3 different diagnoses that I felt I fit. And he listened as to why I felt I fit into those diagnoses. And then from there, he's like, okay, well then let's look at the research. Let's look at the labs. Let's look at the data and figure out which one it is.
But I know that you're also helping others by sharing your story and giving people courage. So if someone said to you, I'm a Latina mom and, I basically run my house and I've been given a diagnosis of PBC, what advice would you give them?
Find a community. Find social support in the liver community, because it's really important to be able to connect with other individuals who have similar symptoms or similar stories and journeys that you do. I would say it's great that we have family support, and we have so much family support in our culture. But at the same time, you need people who understand the level of fatigue and the symptoms that you're going through. You need people who have already advocated and walked the path and journey that you have, so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And I would say don't give up. I mean, your voice matters. Your voice is important. You're your expert of your own body and your own symptoms and how you feel. And if someone's not listening, you have every right to find someone else, to get a second or third or fourth opinion. You have to be your own advocate and not give up, because we do have another generation that we're having to raise. And we don't know if it's genetic, and if it is genetic, we need to raise awareness for our daughters and for our children who are at risk
And I know that there's no cure for PBC, but there's 2 new approved treatments. What does that mean for someone with PBC, this innovation on current treatments, and what might that mean down the road? Like, what does that make you feel like?
It gives me hope, Scott. It gives me hope that people care about my disease, that people care about my diagnosis and are looking to improve my quality of life. The new medication that was just approved about 2 weeks ago is actually one that I have to try now because I'm considered a partial responder. So what a partial responder is when you have PBC, you're given a medication that everyone takes. It's the front line, it's the first medication. And you either respond, you don't respond, or you respond and then stop responding. And that's considered a partial responder, where you have some improvement, but then your body just plateaus and you stop responding. And we kind of knew that was coming up for me. We kind of knew that I had stopped responding to a medication, but there was nothing else for me to try. There was nothing. And this new medication that just came out and the new one that's kind of coming out in the fall really represent hope for me because I didn't have another one to try. There was nothing else left for me to do but wait. And so I'm really cautiously excited and optimistic to start it. Unfortunately, when a new medication comes on board, it's a process. We don't know how to get it or attain it yet. It's not a formulary on my insurance. My insurance doesn't even have it on their radar. So it's kind of back to that self-advocacy where I have to figure out how to get this and my doctor has to figure out how to prescribe it. And that's where we're at right now, honestly, is we're just contacting everyone that we know who may or may not be able to get the medication and try to figure out how do we get someone on this. And if it's not covered by my insurance because it's not even on their formulary or their radar yet, then how do we either pay for it or find patient assistant programs? And that's kind of where I've learned from other advocates is that there are often patient assistance programs that will help pay for the medication, especially when it's super new. And I don't have to pay $60,000 a year.
What is next on your agenda?
So next on my agenda is I'm hoping to continue my advocacy work, especially through partnership with the Global Liver Institute, liver health. And so I've been working very closely with them as a patient ambassador and really want to start getting more into the legislation aspect of it. I'm hoping to potentially get into some of the clinical and maybe even trial advocacy, but I think I will always be focused on health disparities and ethnic minorities, so I think that's going to be my first and foremost always, especially with the Latino community, but any ethnic minority.
I think this has been an amazing conversation, Cecilia. Your voice represents so many others, so thank you for all that you do.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and for allowing me to share my story. I think that is a blessing and a privilege is to be able to share my journey.
Well, this has been a fantastic episode of Liver Leaders Take 5 with Cecilia Dueñas, a psychologist, an advocate, a mom, a wife, and really a change maker. You can watch and listen to more Liver Leaders Take 5 like this on our podcast, and those can be found on our website, livercoalition.org. Thank you very much.